best set studio in Hollywood. See what will happen here. Global Esports on the defense first. Bunker comp. You have the Mei, you have the Torb. Missing the Roadhog, though, importantly. Otherwise, could have been the full CV. But
oh well.
CV going to respond with basically... It's now kind of a dive. You have Tracer. You have a Doomfist. Oh, now it's a Genji.
They're just deciding. By the way, Bellow back in over Mushroom. And I do like this. Gives them the DPS options that I think they're going to need here for Hybrid.
I've been pushed so far, coming in fairly slow. They do want to get a nice rotation, and dodging the Mei wall is very important. And you can also dodge the right click.
Yeah, Queen just too far forward there. He's just kind of walking up well ahead of his own team. They've already lost a bit of time to just swapping, so that unfortunately loses them more time. Hello?
Yep. Speaking of losing more time, right? I mean, that's just more members. They have to wait to respawn. Alone Fills might be able to even things up if we can get this kill on Kim Yute. Is certainly looking for it.
Kim Yute has no way of knowing he's there. And can he get it in time? Oh, Kim Yute gives him the slip, and Alone Fills goes down, and a bit too clever for Xavier's own good, I think.
And the problem is you needed to add in the hack to prevent the hook shot from coming through, but if you add in the hack, you reveal yourself, so it is quite difficult at the end of the day. Now Xavier still just struggling to find an opening here. First pulse coming in. And look, Kim Yute is actually rounding the bend of nearly 80% on the infra site, so there is even a case where, look, if the push takes long enough, he pops the infra site, the entire rotation is revealed, and that just makes pushing even more difficult for Xavier.
Especially Alone Fills, right? And look, it's not like he's particularly close to an EMP, but that is one of your big tools here, especially when you consider the rest of Global Esports are relatively static. EMP should be able to garner a lot of value in a fight, but Xavier are also just slow on the draw of actually getting close to those sorts of win conditions. They've been slow to get started here regardless. They spend a lot of time swapping, and since then they've just had individuals getting picked up while they're kind of half committing to situations.
Yeah, it's just kind of difficult so far. It's been a very slow start. They haven't really had a real fight yet. Very comfortable for Global Esports.
I've never had a real fight.
And well, I'll give you one later.
Share that.
Global Esports are still in a position where they haven't really had to commit either. Saving Kim Yute's life is a decent, just another way to stop Xavier from doing anything in their game plan. And so far, it's just been uneventful. And while it's been uneventful, time has been ticking away.
Exactly, and that's actually the thing that's more important here, right? That it's the time factor. They need to actually cap this point. They also now need to do so with enough momentum that they can win a number of fights on B. If they cap this point but still get slowed down a lot on B, then you start to question their ability to close out the map. That's where Global Esports suddenly bring this map into that winnable territory. And we talk about them needing to start a reverse sweep here. Well, that's how that would happen. They've done like the first step of that. It doesn't guarantee that they'll be able to do all the others, but certainly it now puts the pressure back onto Xavier, whereas before it was on Global Esports.
And the thing is, it will be competitive, right? Because both teams have the capability to make it competitive, and I think even if one team, let's say for Xavier, comes out ahead today and actually wins the match, I don't think Global Esports at any point would roll over.
Certainly not.
Going to the second part of this defense now. Xavier are just so far behind in ults. The only one they might have is a nano boost.
Yeah, those shots ringing out. And, Kim Yute as well is not going to be fooled twice by Alone Fills there. Also nearly has the infra site, so Alone Fills definitely won't be able to get the drop on him.
At this point, you should probably just use the nano boost straight onto Queen, jump in, forget the rotations, start the fight. I mean, you can't wait too long now. You have to be careful about the Mei wall. They can still really stop you.
And that's Boostio. Well, I mean, that's the plan, I suppose. Not the Boostio part, but the dive in, and it has been somewhat successful. Bellow's a little low, but they're keeping him top, just barely. Now it's Queen getting pressured, but ultimately, Xavier have got more kills as the fight has progressed. Now trying to pressure Loop. They've managed to avoid the brunt of the Molten Core as well. Definitely getting past it is THK, who is pulling an incredible amount of weight in this fight. So Xavier, a little bit wonky on the commit. The boost goes on to the Lucio, but they still get the kills necessary.
And I'll be honest, when life gives you lemons, you get those kills with the Lucio if you have to. He actually gets someone on Xenoplayer who may still go down here, who's hacked out very low HP. Xavier have now EMP. Because they barely had ultimates to play with, just a nano boost, they had nothing else to commit. They had to win with no other ultimates except for a nano onto their Lucio of Tay. Now they do have everything else. Now you expect them to snowball B quite successfully.
I feel like what that really was when life gives you lemons, demand to speak to life's manager. Alone Fills the EMP a little bit lackluster though. They can finish off Xenofly for this Blizzard, but they cannot. And better yet, Xenofly doesn't even need to commit the Blizzard. And well, I don't want your damn lemons.
Primal should have probably been used there. THK could have bladed as well. There was in a good position
Ooh, no retreat
for
either.
them to continue. And Global Esports now kind of just won a fight that in many ways Xavier had no right losing.
Stagger onto Bello is really rough. Oh, also losing Tay as well. And Xavier come in with good ultimate, sure, but Global Esports have the right tools to shut it down. Blizzard will slow down Xavier big time, and if Little Rex can find a pick with the Pulse Bomb, then Xavier going to get slowed down a lot more here.
And the pendulum swings over because Global Esports now have collected a decent number of ultimates. They can now contest properly. Blizzard will be used, and that's one more that they just have to wait for Xavier.
Like I said, if you can get a pick with the Pulse Bomb, it's going to waste even more time. Queen trying to make it out, will be able to do so. So it's only one member lost, but it's time lost that's the more important factor.
We saw a lot of that loss on A, and now that's continuing over to B. Now look, when Xavier win, they win big. But when does that big win come? Because they still need to push this card to the end.
And it feels like when they're losing, it's taking them a long time to get underway. It's going to be THK way off yonder. They've committed the sound barrier correctly onto the Blizzard, though, and THK is just barely keeping out of it. Now looking to get aggressive, trying to get down onto the back line. The Nano Blade is there. He's found Faith. Bello dies in the trade. Now going to wait out the May. Needs to finish this one off. Will do so, but it's a 2-for-2 trade. Xavier's starting to make some forward progress at least, and Queen getting unlocked onto the back line means now these members can wrap back around to Luke, hopefully finish him off and get the cart back underway.
And this is finally pushing time for them. They got a lot of space to catch up on. Thankfully, THK gets a decent amount done with both the Nano Boost and the Dragon Blade. Global Esports now making some big changes onto their lineup. Lil Rex staying on Tracer for the time being. A Pulse Bomb coming up online soon.
And Xavier got a lot to contend with here. Global Esports will also likely have a sound barrier and a Nano Boost. They're actually swapping
No more
off.
Pulse Bomb.
And I do agree with that, but unfortunately you lose what could be a big pick potential tool, and just gives it a little bit more breathing room for Xavier.
Now Xavier are going to be walking into the final moments here. Decent amount of CC being later on for Global Esports.
Sleep on Luke as well was quite nice. It's going to be the counter dive in from Luke. He has a Primal Rage and he is making use of it. They're going to be able to find Bello with that. Nothing really to use yet for Xavier because Queen has slept, and they do have an EMP, but they can't really afford to commit it until they can get Queen in the fray. They've actually gone ahead and used it now, and Queen was, I believe, slept right as that happens, now hacked as well, and dude just can't catch a break. There was also a sound barrier anyway to answer the EMP, and Xavier just get nothing accomplished in that fight.
And this is part of the reason why you want to go into this kind of comp for Global Esports, playing Lil Rex onto the Brigida. He's going to do a good job of shutting down both the locals and THK. He's going to need to do so now.
Quick recommit, but that's not accounting for Kim Butte. They have to commit a sound barrier as well, just so THK survives, but he won't get anything out of the ultimates. This is so much invested into one member, and it doesn't get anything done. Now Xavier are probably going to have to make a swap. They committed hard to a Genji that's no longer working.
And that's what happens when Brigida's in the lineup. Both shield bashes went on THK. Less than 1 minute remaining. Less than 30 seconds remaining.
Luke,
Xavier need to go.
He overextended there. He had the Primal Rage to bail himself out, but it might not actually work out for them. They committed an EMP as well, so suddenly the shoe's on the other foot, and it's Global Esports massively committing into a play that they didn't need to take. Queen took so long to die that in that time, they dust off the members of Global Esports, and suddenly Xavier just kind of snatched that one back from the jaws of defeat.
That's going to be the miracle push for them now. Faith going to get staggered out. 6v5 for the time being. Global Esports, most of them got away. All the respawners got to C. And for Xavier now, time available to try and get this card as far as possible. EMP into Dragon Blade. Nano Boost on the way as well. Global Esports don't really have much to defend with. Self-destruct for the defense means they have to be quite proactive. Use that self-destruct before the EMP or Blade can be played.
Now this is Xavier. Oh, that is a sick EMP. That is all 6. This should be a pretty easy breezy cleanup for Xavier. Also allows them to charge up other ultimates. Ideally, they want to get some charge on Queen, and he is going to get exactly that. So, Xavier, happy for that one. May even still be able to finish out this map.
The best part about it, didn't have to use any other ultimates, so they're coming up to the other 5 pretty soon. Bello, the rally armor will certainly help THK. Nano Boost and Blade are both available now. Still have to be careful because last time we saw a Nano Blade, 2 shield bash from Lil Rex stopped him.
Wow, this time he gets straight in on top of Xeon. Flux finds Faith as well, despite the boot away, and Bello dies on the counter side of that, but there's so much pressure still coming out of THK. He's going to find
3 kills.
Luke. He's already starting to recharge a Blade because he got so much work done with the Blade itself initially. Brief slowdown on the cart, but it's Xavier still pushing to the terminus with very few members left up for Global.
Nano Boost into an EMP, gets 4, but we're
Sound barrier is the answer. Xavier, they're still ahead. They're still fighting picks, playing whack-a-mole on the respawners. Luke's hacked. He's going to go down if they're not careful. Anti-heal, whatever. It's going to be a sound barrier out of Faith, but Little Rex still down. Another EMP for a lone fills. D-Mech on Xenofly. Global Esports, they have nothing left. The tank is dry, and Xavier just barely enough grunt left in the engine to get the car over the line and to the parking spot.
And it's a miracle push on B that gets them over the line, and it's another miracle push on C that finishes as well. Context 130 is usually not enough time for any team to complete the entire map. If it takes you until the overtime to cap B, you'd be lucky just to get some good distance on C. The expectation is that you're probably not going to cap here. The fact that they do, it's going to give them a very big leg up, and that is assuming Global Esports can now, on their own offense, get some time on the board, can actually finish the map as well, because, to be honest, looking at how some of, look, Temple of Anubis being an example here, that was really tough for Global Esports. Yes, both teams got across the line, but when you didn't have a lot of time left in that time bank, that's a big issue. Xavier now have a good shot at maybe preventing a full cap altogether.
Like you said, when Xavier win, they win big. The question always seems to be, when is the next big win coming? Well, if it can come at the right times on this defense, then Global Esports might not even get a shot at pushing the cart, let alone a time bank, and that would just give the match right over to Xavier.
Global Esports should be looking to snipe here. Kim Gute already in the Widowmaker position, expecting the possibility of a fire defense, which THK is currently sitting on. Xavier have, at least on some level, a decent transition onto B, where if they lose A, you're probably keeping Alone Fills on the Sombra, probably keeping Queen on some level on the Winston as well. Third-Con on the Ana is pretty decent. Global Esports have a very interesting comp. I don't know what they'll actually stay on. Faith has been swapping back and forth between a few different ones.
Actually considered a Batiste there. I think the Batiste might have actually just been to give Kim Gute some time to sit still.
In case there was a counter sniper, he would have been alive. He would have been fine. But actually thinking about swapping. He knows there's a pharmacy on the other side.
In fact, the entirety of Global Esports seem like they can't quite decide what to roll out on. The Lone Phil's going to take the opportunity to charge up some ultimate.
18%, nothing to write home about just yet. Kim Gute's on 25. Global Esports now go to Orisa Hog. Good way to displace things, at least. If you get a nice hook combo onto anybody, that's player advantage.
I like the extra pick potential as well. If you get the Mercy onto Kim Gute with the damage boost, then just helps the kill pressure.
This is also one way you can really counter the pharmacy combo. You drop the whole thing to them.
Good way to counter a Widowmaker, though, is to just kill her outright. THK is happy to have taken out that one. That's the biggest threat onto him. The counter trade on THK won't be enough. He can just get rezzed, and Global Esports is still being pressured back. Kim Gute is going to decide to make a change onto Sombra.
Rez is too hard. The Rez is too far forward. Still gets it, but costs his own life. I don't think it's worth it.
It probably isn't, unfortunately, but Global Esports are still actually being hampered here. Alone Phil's doing a good job at that, but now that Global Esports are back in the mix, they can start pushing forward again, and now at a numbers advantage.
We'll see what ultimates are available. THK nearly on the barrage, but no defense means very risky for him to use that one.
They need a lot, really. They need a nano boost. They need this primal rage to come up. They need some way of getting a rocket barrage without THK being in too much trouble. They've managed to get Tay back, but Xavier have had to give up a lot of space here just to be at fighting force. They find Little Rax, though, as the first third comes through, so this is where Xavier can start to pressure in. Nano boost onto THK. Doesn't even need the rocket barrage with Luke now dead. They can just start raining in the rockets the regular old-fashioned way and force Global Esports back.
I think with Global Esports, they're expecting ultimates to come through. They want to absorb the pressure of these ultimates and kind of leave with however many members alive still. One tick over the board for Global Esports is decent innings for a push and a half. Less than 2 minutes remaining. Very pushable, very capable onto A, but you do also have to say a lot of time is gone for going into B.
And a hell of a lot of ultimates available for Xavier as well. That's the thing, is Global will be happy to see the nano boost gone, but they probably would have liked the EMP, the rocket barrage, maybe even the primal rage, something else to be committed there, because Xavier do still have a big advantage.
That's something else.
It's very fast EMP, very early EMP. There's the rocket barrage to stop Xenofly from remeching. THK does trade his own life for it, but he picks up 2. So again, not resable here for Tay, but they might just have to accept that.
A 2-for-1 also does mean that Global Esports can't push, take position. THK respawn now. So the member of Global Esports expecting both to be back at pretty similar times, being that Fire can just jump over the early wall.
He's deciding to come back on the Doomfist, actually, and I like that. It's extra pick potential and potentially faster. Back to the point, but a nice EMP from Kim Yu-tae. There's no good answer out from Xavier. Counter pick, though, onto Xeon Flux, and Thinnicorn survives. Queen able to get aggressive. Thinnicorn doesn't survive any longer, unfortunately, though. And Queen's gonna have to do a lot of work here. He gets Luke, though, while Luke's hacked out. Queen has still not died, would you believe? And that's with no supports in the fight. But Kim Yu-tae, last man alive, really, on the point, or last DPS alive, at least. And I don't quite think Alone Phils can take this 1v2, so they will barely get a cap over here.
And this is with Tay dying as the Mercy super early. You can imagine if they kept that player alive, the Mercy being very useful in getting all those heals back in. Queen would have lived far longer. He lived as much as he could anyway. THK would have lived far longer in the Doomfist. That could have still been a hold. Xavier now looking to go on to B. EMP available both sides pretty soon. Nano available both sides. Global Esports have a decent amount of time to get card positioning before Xavier are ready to fight.
Thing is, it's a bit of a bump there for Luke. Not quite what he was looking for. And
now they're ready.
She dies, and suddenly Luke goes, oops, maybe I shouldn't have. It's not a lot of time either. 3 minutes total, and already half of a minute gone here for Global Esports. Hack on Xeno Fly, just constant pressure up from Xavier.
And you gotta be careful, that's a 3-man bio now. If someone goes down here, that's a push over. Self-destruct being played in.
Do like it. Everyone's gonna survive. Queen going down on the ground, though, is a bit troublesome for Xavier. They lose some of that forward pressure, so it's really all down to the DPSs and the flankers. Nice EMP, though. If they can still finish members off here, even without Queen, then it's still been worthwhile. They need to finish off Little Rax. They will do so. And they're going to force the full retreat now from Global Esports. In fact, some of these members might not still make it out alive.
And to be fair, this was going to be a retreating fight for Global Esports anyway. This is why Kim Yu-tae doesn't pop in his own EMP after they lose their D.Va. Look, there was a self-destruct being played in there, instant headshot followed by THK on the baby D.Va, means no remake, means that's player advantage. Yes, they got one back, but that's still not a comfortable fight where they really want to commit. They see the EMP, they say, okay, we're just going to try and get out now. We want the EMP advantage. We don't want to flip the coin because we counter EMP. No guarantee we can actually win this one. Better to absorb the EMP, come in with that advantage, use our own EMP to then push in and win. And that's what they're really banking on. But they do have to reset for that, so they lose objective pressure. They're going to allow THK some clean sight lines for sniping. Also, your Widow player's Kim Yu-tae. He's sitting on the Sombra, sitting on EMP, so no chance of a counter sniper yet.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the other factor here as well, which is now time. They only had 3 minutes total because it took them long to cap A. They did so fairly well when push came to shove. Even then, it was a bit of a tough fight. Xavier really didn't make it easy for them, but now you see Xavier having early success on A. Even if in this next fight, Global Esports can come back in and get a favorable fight and get the cart moving, there's more than enough time for Xavier to still take another fight somewhere on B before the cap would even be able to come through. So Global Esports are now just in a position where they've got to win multiple fights in a row to even get to C, let alone cap C.
So Bello did have to reconnect here, which means he's, coming back fresh. No ultimate on that rally. Xavier now are going to be one down until Bello is in position, which should be coming soon. So really for Global Esports, there's not really enough time to capitalize on, but lack of an ultimate will hurt.
That's the thing, there's still potentially enough to work with on both sides of it here. EMP nearly available against the Lone Phils. That's a huge pick early. Even though it's only the DMEC, it's now a DMEC and a full kill, and it's just more time lost. And Global Esports, they're not really sure if they can afford the time lost. They decide, hey, maybe we should just
still
be aggressive, but they eat a massive biotic grenade, and that's going to give Xavier even more kills. Now just less time, less ultimates for Global Esports.
And you can tell they just didn't want to back out this time. They knew this was going to be the fight they should be committing in. Alone Phils has another EMP, so guess what? The timing window is closed. Previous to this, they thought we absorbed the EMP, we would come back with our own. Now there's EMP on both sides. Alone Phils got away with murder there. He got a free EMP and now gets to match Kim Yu-tae once more. 40 seconds remaining and the cart has barely moved.
And you could even expect reasonably for Tay to have a sound barrier by the time this EMP even comes out from Kim Yu-tae. Even though it's a little ways away yet, that sound barrier is just so gross. And they go with an EMP on top of it. You might as well take the aggressive fight. Only 30 seconds left. Very opportunistic from Xavier, but also in the right position to create those sorts of plays. And Global Esports don't even get to start the fight.
I guess to tell you what, Global Esports, they fold on this hand, but they're going to have to go all in next time. 13 seconds remaining, 5 ultimates remaining, a lot less to work with for Xavier, and Global Esports only got 1 shot.
And there's Infrasight. There's Infrasight on Kim Yute. He cannot get a sneaky wrap around. There's already a Biotic Grenade landed because Xenofly got slept in that window. Xeon Flux eats a hack. Alofils does go down, but Kim Yute doesn't get enough done with the EMP. Again, they knew where he was coming from. Tay could just avoid it. They get a sound barrier. They've now killed Xeon Flux. They get Kim Yute. And Xavier are just massively in the driver's seat. Global Esports barely got any room to breathe, any room to maneuver, any time or space to accomplish anything on this offense into the streets phase of Hollywood. And with that, Xavier looking poised to finish this off. Just need to finish up the last few members here. Global Esports trying to make it interesting.
I will tell you, the respawn advantage slightly favors Global Esports here, but that only matters if they can get counter trades, which they're no longer getting.
And with that, Xavier are going to seal the book on that with another EMP from Alofils. That is 3 from him for 1 from Kim Yute, and the 1 from Kim Yute didn't even get the work done. Xavier have won the series. The question now is it a full 4-0?
Yep. A 3-0 is already insane. 1-3 now, the best possible score for Global Esports. And to be honest, if you think about how Xavier have performed in the weeks leading up, it's not been pretty. I mean, they've been going down fairly consistently. Xavier got 0-4'd by Fiery Society. For context, now they are looking to 4-0 Global Esports, who themselves have already beaten Fiery Society.
It's almost starting to feel like Xavier shouldn't have lost outside of those first couple of weeks. Unfortunately, that is how things have panned out. But if they stay in this form, we were saying it before, if they stay in this form for the rest of the round robin, I expect them to win their next 2 matches. Beyond that as well, you favor them going into playoffs, even if they can't quite get the second place seed to get that semi-final. You assume that they'll be able to win a quarterfinal at that point, and even then, still potentially win the semi-final.
And I'll be honest, this last sort of, the last parts of Hollywood really reminded me of how some Temple of Anubis went, where Xavier got caught out on that attack. Remember, they're trying to snowball with the Genji and all of that. They couldn't use their ultimates, kept getting picked up, kept losing those fights. Eventually, they all committed and they all won because they'd had this huge lead. That nearly happened here, where you're thinking they got about 10 seconds left for Global Esports, about 6 ultimates there as well, 5 or 6 ultimates. This is about where they should be winning. They didn't win. They just couldn't do it. They couldn't find the damage, couldn't find the kills. Overtime happened. Even if they won the overtime, that's a long distance to push for them as well. It just wasn't pretty. And we had the discussion about, okay, yes, it took until overtime for Xavier to finish the map, but can Global Esports even finish the map? Didn't happen.
Exactly. And I mean, it's things like that, right? When you look at the 1-to-1 between these two teams, when they've ended up in similar situations, it's just always been Xavier coming out the better of it. You look at this and go, it's not like Global Esports feel like they're particularly underperforming. It feels like Xavier are firing on all cylinders. They're playing as well as they should have played these last couple of weeks. They've been the ones underperforming up until now. They're no longer underperforming, and they are a terrifying team. They're a force to be reckoned with.
And I'll tell you what, Xavier are only the underdogs in this matchup if you use the metric of week 3 and 4 Xavier performance. If you use the metric of week 1 and 2 Xavier, they would actually be the favorites in this match. This would be the expected result. Xavier should be the better team if we're using where their potential really is, which is what they looked like in those first couple of weeks.
And it's a shame that those middle 2 weeks there kind of hurt the overall scoreline. Indeed, has put them in a position where they're actually technically in 7th place. They are not playing the way you expect a 7th place team. Better yet, they are not playing how you expect a 7th place team versus what is currently the 2nd place team would go. But, I mean, here you have it. The scoreline belies their actual skill level.
Exactly. Excuse me. Oh. Exactly, because they have they've shown much better results. Even week 2, 2-3 loss versus Nova. You'll take that loss because actually week 2 Nova was pretty good.
They were.
But that was a big sign to say, hey, these guys can tangle with Nova, who at that time we were saying we're going to be the 2nd best team. Now who knows? Global Esports got knocked down a peg. Both underdog teams today won, which means nobody is on 4 wins in the tournament so far.
By the way, congratulations to Talon for clinching a 1st place finish in the regular season with no team on 4 wins. They sit uncontested at 5. It's pretty wild to say. Week 5, they have clinched the 1st place seed. But
that's what happens when you have a perfect record, not a single map dropped. And in some cases, it's like celebrations are in order. In other cases, just expectation, just another day at work, just another win for themselves. And now Xavier, speaking of another win, can they get the 4-0? Because that would be really big on their comeback journey in the season.
Global Esports going to sit pretty with a bunker. Batiste bunker, actually, with the Bastion. A lot of Bs in that. Xavier, I do like the pick potential that they could run here, but I'm not quite sure whether they want to commit to the Roadhog. I think Bello's going to change off it now. They want something more divey.
Yeah, they want either flank pressure, spam pressure, or something to get past this position. You'll notice Global Esports have set up on this high ground rather than inside the hotel section where normally you would, because they want to play this angle instead, and this is going to be interesting to see how Xavier want to approach.
It's the harder part, in theory, for Xavier to push through. It's just it's a more limited area on the whole, which is why you don't see teams take this too often. But Nice Spook doesn't quite get Little Rax, but getting Luke is possibly more important because they can't reposition that shield in front of him, so Little Rax eventually just has to commit to the ground, gets anti-healed, the Immortality Field is down. They've still found a kill though, and the Immortality Field is no longer in play, but Global Esports, I was going to say they've weathered the worst of it, but then THK finds Little Rax, now he's got a blade, he's looking for more, might be able to find the Batiste, indeed he will, and now it's pressure onto Luke. THK just having done so much again on this Genji.
And gets his Dragon Blade so quickly as well before anybody else can get any ultimates. And guess what? Also, the Kana's been pushing this whole time, so they've got to cap off this. You'd like to think Lil Rax and the rest of Global Esports, okay, the Kana's actually further away than I thought, but still, you have to set up your Bastion again. Yeah. He is alive, but he needs a position.
So I think the bunker's been busted and it's hard to re-establish it. Even if they do, they don't have a good favorable position like what they did before, and you'd still say Xavier should be able to break it once again. This is a nice position though for the Bastion.
And
wide
Field's
open
big.
firing line, and yeah, exactly, with the Batista ultimate as well. This is a good recovery mechanic here for Global Esports.
And it's going to be 2 ultimates gone though. Faith also, you
Hello,
mentioned Sound Barrier. Oh no, he was actually in the Mercy, never mind. Right, also the Stagger doesn't quite help. The EMP, you would expect from Alone Fills to complete this push eventually. Bello even remix in the middle there, so not bad.
Yikes. That's the thing, actually. Bello not getting fully staggered and being able to back off, live, and remech is pretty significant. You're also going to see Alone Fills ready to get the wrap front. Ooh, nice catch on THK, though.
Gotta go anyway.
EMP comes in. They don't have the ideal members to follow up on it, but they've got to just commit. And this is not going well for Xavier, unfortunately. Global Esports just kind of digging deep on that one.
Honestly, I would like to have seen them commit that while THK is alive, or at least wait for THK, because that's one of your key members you need, both Queen and THK to dive in, because that's how you're going to get the damage. The problem is, the bunker's on high ground, so to get to high ground, you need to play dive to really move inwards. The EMP to shut down all the shielding and the defensive capabilities, but who's going to do the damage if THK is dead and then you commit?
What they can potentially do here is they can, if they can thread the needle. Oh, yikes, THK
Thread the needle?
Yeah, that's speaking of needles being threaded, but they can just...
Thread the needle?
For goodness sake. Let me speak, Kim Ute. If they can get Bello's self-destruct up into that window, then they can at least force Global Esports to reposition. That is a window for Xavier to dive, but they will unfortunately do so without the Diva because obviously there's a self-destruct running. So it's a little bit wonky for Xavier no matter how you slice it.
I will say as well, because the tank form is available, Lil Rax doesn't care about repositioning. If he is forced off from his perch, uses the ultimate, and now he's a mobile killing machine on the ground. Global Esports have a really good shot at completing a hold here.
Speaking of good shot, Kim Ute has just got such great sight lines. You almost feel like it's inevitable that somebody else dies on the side of Xavier, and this has been such a good defense right here for Global Esports. They've just really hit a rhythm.
And the supercharger damage, amplification matrix damage, so much for Global Esports to use.
Oh,
Sleep on Xenoflight, could that be an opening?
There's the self-destruct, doesn't actually get into the window though, and Queen just has to commit to the dive. Bello meanwhile dies as the pilot form Diva. THK's got to find an opportunity to go in with the blade. He's found it now as he's trying to back up Queen. They find Kim Ute, but they need to get a lot more. Little Rax is still shredding the rest of the team. He is still uncontested. THK, if he goes up here, they're not on the cart, and if they're on the cart, they're in the firing line of Little Rax, who is still alive. THK cannot catch a break, cannot get enough work done on his own, and I feel like so much of that comes down to Bello missing that window with the self-destruct. You just can't get enough done with the rest of these members against the Bastion. With all of those tools in the bank for Global Esports, they complete a pretty impressive hold.
Speaking of missing the window, this time metaphorically, this is when you had an earlier push where THK was alive, EMP was committed into nothing, Nano was put onto Queen as well. Again, for nothing, they completely failed that push. That would have been the push to win this point, to actually get this A push over the line. And Xavier just completely miss, executed, and yes, it is unfortunate that also the self-destruct does not go in the hole. Sorry, Luke, but the Death Star completed its mission.
Yeah. Man, if he missed those shots, he would have felt like such an idiot.
He would have died, so he wouldn't have felt much.
Well, you would have felt like an idiot for a brief moment, right? You would have been like, I should have done that. Shouldn't have believed in the Force. Like that would have been a very different kind of movie. It's like, turns out he wasn't the chosen
ending,
one.
right?
He was actually an idiot, and the real chosen one is somewhere else. Let's go find him. I don't know. Someone make that. So they do
looks like Womp Rats aren't easy to shoot after all.
Yeah, looks like they do the alternate history Star Wars, and there's one where like Han Solo is blind permanently and kinds of other stuff. I want to see the one where Luke misses the shots on the Death Star.
You wouldn't have had a trilogy. That would just be the end of the movie.
The Empire just kind of wins.
That's it.
The Rebels never really get off the ground, and I don't know, you got to wait for another chosen one, I guess. Maybe the chosen one's Kim Gute.
Well, after that play, but also he wasn't, it's not like there's no real pressure against him in some ways, no opposing Widowmaker. You got to say now Global Esports pushing now on this offense. They have the shot of all shots to get that one map back. It'd be really concerning if they couldn't win from here because they've done so much to set themselves up.
It's just the right comp as well to deal with what Xavier are doing, but they need to actually be willing to commit to it. They're just sort of playing ring around the rosy.
By the way,
which base door to pop out of.
That Holt play is specifically anti-Sombra because that's where a lot of Sombras are hiding invisible. So you get that Holt in, you completely deny a Sombra and get that kill early. But they see the 3-3, they actually see a lone falls of the Sombra anyway, he's just in a different spot. Yep. They opt into this mirror comp.
The thing is, Xavier are actually kind of happy to take this. Luke has done a good job, though, of charging up ultimate, so that will really help them. And they are putting the pressure on Xavier, but hack an anti-heal on Kim Gute. He needs to be careful. Xavier need to get a kill here. They can't just let this get pushed.
Global Esports even more wanting to take this, and we've seen even early in the evening when we had the other matchup, this is exactly what happened, and it did give a map over. Xavier now, what can they do? They're so far behind on EMP and other ults.
Oh, yikes. They lose a lone fills as well, and that's the thing, the EMP would have potentially been a big one, otherwise, still just trades coming through. Even as Xavier start getting kills, there's too many trades. They're finally getting a few more. They're going to have to wait for a lot of slow respawners, though. Thittercorn especially in Global Esports, even though they're suffering some late deaths, they've still got plenty of time, and their respawn is still very close.
Luke actually had an Earth Shatter that he used that only gets Thittercorn, and in a way that's fine because, okay, you've denied the only other ultimate for Xavier for a comeback potential. You actually kill Anna as well, but the problem is, he didn't get much else. There was no one else shattered. Xavier, the rest of them are completely fine. Now Queen will soon have a shatter, where Luke does not. Both teams will have a grab as well. Xeon Flux looking like Transcendence.
Difference maker could be a lone fills.
Bionate's big.
Heal that's really big. It stops that Transcendence from having the required impact, and that's a really good fight win for Xavier. That's the kind of win you need when you need to have such a long defense with no room for error. You need to be getting single ultimate fight wins.
This is not going to be a kill either. This is just going to be
stagger.
A long stagger. Guess what? There's nowhere to jump off the map, so you just have to chill out for as long as you can. And this is best case scenario for Xavier, where they didn't have to use EMP.
Stagger.
It's available now. There's no defense versus EMP, no sound barrier, no transcendence. That was already used.
Oh, more
and they're
staggers.
even losing more members.
These Globals have decided to push forward a little bit, maybe see if they could catch up to Xenofly, if he could escape, or even maybe take some members of Xavier unawares, but they end up a bit too far forward. Xavier pounce and just extend the clock burning.
I'll tell you what, the good news is Xenofly, because he gets back in the mech eventually, he goes down and respawns. He gets to keep the self-destruct, which he otherwise would have lost.
Oh!
Speaking of lose, that's no more EMP.
Immediately goes spy checking and finds one. That's a big catch. Sound barrier to deal with this Graviton Surge. Shatter now as well as the counter grab, and this is so all over the show, but Xavier need to find some picks to charge in, but Queen takes huge chunks from the self-destruct. They need to finish off Luke, but he is not going to be able to get the better end of that fight because he lost so much health previously. Finally, the EMP comes back in from a lone fills, but now there's so few members to follow up on it. A lone fills kind of has to do so much of the work himself. There's no single tank to save him, and that is so much work done from Faith. It looks like that might just be it. Xavier, I don't know if they can really hold on much longer. And
that's the alone Phil's death that may cost them this entire map. In fact, now Xavier just have a shadow to work with, and they're really going to land this big time.
Kim Gute reads it like a book. He's able to throw his own barrier up. They're going to be just fine from that. Xavier trying to get the members back in so that they can at least take the fight, but the cart is there. Global Esports will get the one back. It won't just be the 4-0, and Xavier will be hurting for that a little bit because map differential could still impact this team's standing if the next couple of weeks don't go the right way. But for now, they've picked up another win. They're not just completely bottoming out, and they are looking like they've returned to form.
And honestly, the difference between 3-1 and 4-0 is quite staggering in terms of map differential, because that's the difference between a +4 and a +2.
Yeah.
Because now you've only got 2 maps over your opponents in this matchup instead of the extra 2 if you got Havana as well. And Havana, I think, was a very disappointing loss in a way, because that went so one-sided for Global Esports when Xavier had the read on Global Esports for 3 maps in a row, and then right on the last one, perhaps celebrated too early, like, well, we got this, we won. Didn't quite have enough gas left in the tank to make the final journey.
The crazy thing is, it even felt like they could have still accomplished that defense up until the moment where Alone Fills dies with a full EMP from a spy-checking Diva. And honestly, I think that one death is probably the more impactful than any other on the side of Xavier. Even if you look at how things went across their own offense, where, to be frank, they utterly failed to dislodge the bunker. So it's rough, right? It's a really rough loss, no matter how you slice it, but they will be pleased to have at least got the series win.
You can imagine if this was, if we played Havana maybe earlier and the same thing happened, you'd be going to the next map, like, who knows what could happen. Actually, Global Esports kind of look like they're coming back now. The dream of the reverse sweep could still be real, but happens late enough that it's kind of sad for both teams where, you don't get to live that reverse sweep dream. You don't get the 4-0 either. Xavier, like you mentioned, will be quite happy to walk away with at least a victory, and it does now completely shake everything up.